Hey, hey, YouTube friends. Almost called you Facebook friends, didn't I? All right. Facebook, not quite up and running yet. Let's give them just a second yet. Looks like May. There we go. There we go. All right. Welcome. My name's Dan. This is Daily Art Adventure number 914. I started on January 1st, 2017, so over 3 years ago. And I'm doing two paintings here. I'll just start with this one right here. This is a picture of my dear old friend Darcy and her dad. Her mom's off there, I suppose. This is her wedding 20 years ago. So this is indeed a after-wedding or post-wedding painting, if you will. And as you can see, I've already started. Before I started the broadcast, I did the crazy abstract shape that has nothing to do with, well, no, that's not true. It has a oppositional relationship to the subject matter, so it doesn't have nothing to do with the relationship. I'm sorry, it doesn't have nothing to do with the image. It's in fact opposed to the image. I'm quite careful not to have any vertical shapes here or here. Well, that's a little close. I'll just leave it at that for the moment. Leave that explanation alone. This is indeed what I mean by the beginning or starting a painting with acrylic craziness. Of course, this is, all you regulars know, this is going to be a oil painting. These are both going to be oil paintings. I used to start multiple paintings at the same time quite often, for the very reason that you'll see here shortly. Because now, while I wait for that to dry, I can switch to the other painting. So really what I just did, well, I'm beginning to darken in the background, but obviously in a very, very messy manner, very non-objective. It's not a picture of an object. I'm going to do the same thing here. Here, my other painting here is a still life. Most of you have probably never seen me do a still life because I don't do them very often. Hello, Jane again. Hello, Iris. Morning here. Yeah, I wondered. It's when I broadcast this late in the day, I realize that I'm cutting off a lot of my European watchers and followers. So are you in Australia? Or are you in Korea? Japan? Well, that didn't take long, did it? Right? Tell you what, I don't really need to wait for this other one to dry, because, so let's go back to this one. So once again, this is an after wedding painting. It's one of my wedding paintings, but done obviously from a photograph instead of from being there live. And I'm going to begin to not block in, but what I like to call blob in my subject matter. I don't like blocking in, I like blobbing in. Australia. Yeah, I wondered. Glad to be part of your breakfast entertainment, shall we say. Hope I can help you get your day off to a good start. I think I'm going to live dangerously and begin to mostly just position the bride and groom on the canvas in the most abstract manner possible. She has obviously just stepped off a platform at the front of the church, represented by that stage, and I happen to know that this is her father, who just performed the ceremony, old friend of mine from way back in college days. If you've been watching any of my, I'm going to try to get Facebook back online. We lost Facebook a minute ago. The only thing I can do to rectify some of my broadcast issues is buy yet another camera. Now that might sound so simple. Please bear in mind I've already bought 5, or is it 4? So buying one more, and I'm not a wealthy man, in spite of my worldwide artistic fame. And who else? Light Blue, hey, good to see you again. And Stein Bjorn, hello, Mr. Stein, good to have you with us. Kazakhstan, oh my goodness, you should be sleeping. Indeed, you should be sleeping. I don't know what you're doing. Oh my goodness. All right, let me go back to, I was saying, if you've watched some of my recent portrait work, let me pick up the latest one, just by way of example. Okay, so this is the way my portraits end up, and I take considerable pains often to explain that I made this print in Photoshop. I made this print the same size as my painting, not the other way around. Why don't I make my painting the size of the print? And that's what I'm showing you here. Because I start out, and I feel good about this procedure, it's because I start out my paintings intuitively. If I start out my paintings measuring very carefully, then I'm going to have to lock in exactly where I place these figures in the canvas. Does that make sense? Whereas if I start out intuitively, then I get to feel how large do I want these figures to be. And in fact, I'm going to put this painting down. This painting, by the way, is 99% finished. His face is done. I have work to do on his texture of his jacket and a little bit of the background, and I hope to finish that later on this evening. But let me get back to this painting, because it's already bothering me, because I want to change the position of the couple, the bride and groom, on the canvas. Again, I would rather do this part intuitively than scientifically, if you will. I would rather feel, and again, standing back, and of course the long handles help, standing back fairly far from the canvas, I get a feel. So then, once I've started the painting, and I end up with a head, let's say, that is going to be, let's just imagine for a minute, it's going to be that big. Once I've started the painting, then, bear with me just a minute here. Then I go to my computer and make a print that comes out exactly that size. At least that's one of the, what I'm now calling photomechanical tricks, photomechanical techniques for accomplishing, achieving a perfect likeness in a painting. That's just one of the many tricks, of course, that I will employ. I did a brief broadcast this morning where we talked about, see, I'm changing my mind already. See, a few minutes ago, I had that line down here. Now I've moved it up about 1/2 inch. Before it's all over, I may move it back down again, or I might move it even higher again. So this is my method. I make myself very free to move, to change my mind a great deal. You know, I am going to move the bottom of her dress down for a 3rd time. And we are not having much success, I'm sorry to say, in getting our Facebook friends back. I'm very sorry about that, Facebook friends, but until I buy my 5th camera, they do keep coming with coming up with improved cameras, by the way. That's why I would even bother buying a new one, because they keep making improvements. Much desperately needed improvements, as we are seeing here. All right, while those lines are drying, I'm going to go back to large brushes. And do more background. I'm going to do something I rarely do in the acrylic stage, and that is use brown. And that's partly because in the photograph, the background is actually intentional decision, very intentional choice to, as you can see, I've already lost much of my original abstract, which I don't really like. That means I've overpainted already, but that's all right. It's still there a little bit. Let's see if I can do a better job on this one. Ooh, I like the way this is dried. I'm still wrestling, by the way, with technology over here, trying to get our Facebook people back up, but so far to no avail. All right, I'm going to do a burst of light, or here again, here's my reference. It's a still life, as you can see. There are some aspects of this still life that I am most certainly not going to not going to follow. And then there are other aspects that I do intend to emulate. Specifically, I'm going to position the bouquet a little bit different, a little bit larger. I'm not going to have the side of the bride and her arm I'm going to have in the painting, but I'm not going to have it nearly as bright as you see there in the photograph. All right, that's soaking wet and good enough for now. I'll tell you what, wait a minute, before I send that away, let's just do a little bit of scratching and drawing. Those are fingers, there's a thumb, there's an arm, and these are flowers. Brilliant, eh? Let's see. At the moment, this stem is pointing almost too close to exactly that corner. I don't want that, so I'm going to expand it this way a little bit. All right, good enough. And most of those lines, of course, are just there for texture. They're hardly even there for drawing. All right, I just about poked myself in the eye with a clamp, so let's get rid of that clamp. Aha, I know what I'm going to do here. I just caught a vision for something a little bit different. I'm dipping a terry cloth rag into my rinsing water. This is so strange. Well, I'm probably going to give up completely on my Facebook camera. This morning it worked beautifully. This evening, not at all. I'm doing two things now. One is the paint was so thick that I thought, you know what? I bet. First of all, I want it to dry more quickly. But secondly, I just thought, I bet I could get some really neat texture with kind of a scratchy, damp rag. And indeed, I am. All right. Some of you are deeply confused. I do apologize. Well, some of you guys chatting up a storm. Hello, Iris, or Aris, forgive me, from Australia. Good to have you here again. Chronology. And androtassel chronology. I'm not sure what that means, but let's see. Read on. Oh, good question. And hello, Jennifer. Generally speaking, for the acrylic underneath, I pick colors that are opposite of the real color. But in this particular painting, unusual, I've done a very warm background because I want to trick my brain into ignoring this blue. I've decided, very conscious decision, that this dark blue is not a good color. I want to go more toward a Rembrandt-ish color, if that makes sense. Now, I already drew these people in here one time. This time I'm going to do it and my broadcast this morning, we talked about anatomy, anatomical drawing. and how understanding the anatomy, you must understand the anatomy if you want to draw or paint the anatomy well. In other words, you cannot just rely on your powers of observation or powers of copying, if you will, if you want to do a good... Okay, no, wait a minute, wait, got her. If you want to do good anatomy, you have to do your homework and study anatomy. It's not just enough just to observe on a case by case by case, picture by picture by picture basis. No. And in a way, I've already given some thought to what I'm seeing here. I am going to elongate the subject somewhat, especially because of the nature of the photograph and so forth. I feel even slightly more free to elongate the figure. Normally, the rule is, my rule is, do you slenderize people? Yes, of course you do. But how much? Enough so that they look at your painting and go, ooh, I look good. Not so much that they look at your painting and go, you made me skinny. Are you calling me fat? Do you understand? That's the woman talking, of course. Okay? I'm because of the playful, I violate that rule slightly. First of all, she's a thin young lady, so she's not as likely to be hypersensitive, which means I have the freedom to elongate her slightly more than if she wasn't very thin, which I think she is, then I'd have to be more cautious, but she is. But for some reason, I feel like, and I've known, I mean, the last time I saw this young lady was 8 years ago, I guess, but I'm assuming she has kids. I'm not sure. I think she does, or kid anyway. And she's, forgive me for too much information, but she's still thin anyway. So you have a little bit more freedom in America, in our current Western culture. If the woman is thin, you have a little bit more freedom to elongate her. Anyway, and I might be wrong. All that might be wrong. But that's my inner thinking anyway. And because of the playfulness of the pose, I feel just a little freer to elongate her slightly. I mentioned a while ago, I had the stage here, or here, then here, and now I've moved it maybe a third time. I don't even know if I've moved it up or down. I'm going to move it up. And I don't think we see any of it over here, but I'm going to change that slightly. It will be a slightly better painting. And by the way, this is why I have a T-square here. So that I don't have to, I don't usually use it to draw straight lines, but it was there, so I couldn't resist. That's to make sure that the top of the stage or platform is level. Now, in reality, I'm getting in deep. In reality, there may be a sense of perspective. It may actually go up or down. I don't care about that. In my painting, it's going to be horizontal, as if we're looking straight at it. It would be too much. It would be trying too hard, if you will, to try to, in my opinion, to capture a sense of perspective on a line that's so close to horizontal in the photograph. It would be foolhardy, in my opinion, to try to convey. All this background is going to be quite abstract, just faint glows of things, with the exception of that man right there, and then maybe some other very faint figures there in the back. Everything else. I'm debating what to do next. Yeah, I think I'll do a little bit more drawing with brushes. let's go back to the beautiful bride again. I was totally shocked and surprised when my old friends told me that their daughter Darcy had been married for 20 years. And then, because I was there when, so to speak, I was in town, I was friends with these people when Darcy was born. I remember her. I remember the news of her birth. You know, it's just a thing that all old people deal with. Anyway, I was surprised. She's been married 20 years? Till I realized my own daughter has been married 14. So, oh yeah, that's right. And Darcy was born long before my daughter came along. So it's just one of those, again, you young people don't know anything about it, but you will. If you have the blessing of living to a decent age, you'll experience this shock of time travel. So back to a little bit of what I was talking about this morning. My drawing at this moment is based upon two separate. And I like the way I scratched. I do like the way I scratched through that wet paint. You understand? All the paint on here is rather soupy, so I can scratch through it. That's kind of a nice effect. My drawing of the lovely bride at this moment is based upon two separate and distinct skills, if you are, two sets of learning. One is power of observation. I'm just looking at that flat two-dimensional photograph and trying to draw out what I see. And at the same time, I am calling upon my understanding of human anatomy. And I'm, at the moment, I'm glad that I have I'm by no means an expert, but I'm glad that I have some degree of understanding of the human anatomy that, in combination with my observation, helps a great deal. Let me see if I can scratch in here. Oh yeah, oh how fun. You don't usually catch it at the right minute, I would say, with acrylics where you can scratch. Now, let's look at this groom. I like the way he looks here. And he's about, well, she's scrunched over, but as they are here, he's about half a head taller than her, and I've got him slightly taller than that, and I've got him slightly further away. Okay, I like his physique here, but I'm gonna go back toward the photograph a little bit and say, okay, gonna lower his head just a little bit and move him a little bit closer to his bride. So closeness is a good thing, of course. I'm thinking an artist thinks about all kinds of things. I feel like all the time artists think about things that non-artists have no idea. And non-artists will go, what? You actually thought about that? You actually thought about the psychological significance of moving him 3/8 of an inch closer to the bride? And the answer is certainly. Of course that's a factor. You thought about the psychological impact, that difference that might make. My answer is absolutely. So that's why I moved him back over a little bit closer, so there will be just a little bit more of an intimacy between them. As you can probably tell, I'm assuming you can see of all the photographs taken that day at the wedding, was Darcy, and I'm afraid I forget her husband's name. I should have asked. I never knew him. Met him once. Anyway, walking, the recessional, walking down the aisle, walking out. And she's doing a very, very animated little curtsy kind of thing. Cute, sticking out her tongue. By the way, it is going to be quite the challenge to render her face because it's quite a contorted face. Again, it's okay for me to say that. She's a very pretty woman, but a very contorted face. Her tongue sticking out quite far over her bottom teeth. And there's a difference between the way people look at a photograph. When people look at a photograph, they believe the camera because they're completely conditioned. They don't know any other way but to believe the camera. They trust the camera. The camera's telling the truth. Conversely, when people look at a painting, they are predisposed to not believe the painting. So I'm going to have quite a task on my hands rendering the lovely Darcy, her face, which is quite contorted, which looks just fine when it's a camera, but the viewers of this painting, except those who know the paint, anyway, that's who I'm doing it for. They won't know, they won't necessarily believe it on trying to rescue my Facebook friends.
Hey guys, can we?
All right, I'm going to put this away and let it dry for a few minutes while I switch to the other painting. Yeah, and do something roughly similar over here. Yeah, let's draw. Continue drawing with these long handle brushes. I'm sorry that these brushes are no longer available. Because I get questions often. When they were discontinuing them, I rushed to the store and bought. I already had 50 of them, perhaps 40 anyway, and I bought another 40. So I will use them till they are all worn out. Rosemary Brush Company makes long-handled brushes, but as I understand it, they don't make long-handled bristle brushes, which is quite the mystery to me. They make long-handled synthetic. Anyway, they will make bristles for you, but I expect it's quite expensive. That is the Rosemary Brush Company. So somebody somewhere needs to, in my humble opinion, needs to pick up the slack and start manufacturing long-handled brushes. All right, once again, here's my reference photo. Of course, the exactness of drawing is not nearly as critical for this as it is for a figurative painting. Most of my thought and attention on this painting, the exactitude, if you will be directed toward composition, the abstract elements. Ooh, I just got a glimpse of something. There we go. But I do need that to dry. Again, I'm going to play with the composition. This bit of light down here peeking through this triangle, I feel like is important. This is all going to be quite bright up here, but it's too high up and too far to the corner, so it needs to be counterbalanced with some things down here. And then I think it'll work. But alas, I didn't work on that very long and I already need it to dry. Well, you know what I might do? I have done what I advertised with the title here. Starting to oil paintings with acrylic craziness. So I think I'm just going to be at plus. I'm going to restart all my devices and see if I can get my Facebook friends back up and running. So I'm going to end this broadcast with YouTube people here. Stein Bjorn, yes, I do. I have a system. I sent one to Norway a couple years ago. That's the furthest I think I've shipped. I need to look it up. Somewhere on my channel, go to my channel and do a search for packing or packaging or shipping. One of those words, packing, packaging, or shipping paintings, preparing paintings for shipping, maybe something like that. I use sheets of insulation, what we typically in America, what we call styrofoam, but it's not the white polystyrene beadboard, not the white stuff, but the blue or pink stuff that's more dense. Anyway, there is a system. I like it quite well. I learned it from somebody else, and I trust my package way more than I trust, say, FedEx's package, even though FedEx won't insure it if I don't use their packages. So there's a real, my engineering is better than their engineers. It sounds arrogant. Sorry, it's true. My package is way better than theirs, but they won't insure it because it's not theirs. Anyway, thanks for a good question. 3:07 p.m. in British Columbia. Yeah, and it's raining. Bless you.